Hello and welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation with me, your host, Owen James, channel that brings you your team every single day. Guys, the fallout as a dog comes through the door. On point, as always, guys. Look, let's talk about that TIFO again. We obviously found out a little bit more information today as regards the TIFO, obviously, that was put out there on Sunday, which, as we've said, was a Star Wars reference. I had someone ask on one of the videos, where was the reference? When was it said in Star Wars? Well, in one of the I can't remember which Star Wars film it was. There was definitely one. But Darth Vader turns to one of the commanders on the Death Star and says, "Take aim against the rebel scum." That is a quote from a Star Wars film. I just wish I could remember which Star Wars film. But if you can remember, just drop me a comment. So to the person who asked that, it's in a Star Wars film. It's definitely in there. Go and look for it. So look, like I said, fantastic TIFO, absolutely brilliant. I think it cost over $5,000 to put together. Anyway, Police Scotland obviously time confiscated the banner, and obviously then an investigation ensued into this TIFO, because as we know, Celtic fans, anything that every time they lose or drop points, they have to have a moan or a whine about something. It was the water bottles Skooshgate last time when they wanted Václav Černý crucifying for squirting water on them. And we had the most ridiculous comments at the time, like, for example, there could have been anything in that bottle. Yeah, like water. There could have been battery acid in that bottle. Yes, because of course that's a thing you would put in a water bottle on a football field. It could have been Lucozade, and someone could have had an allergic reaction to citrus. I mean, you just genuinely worry about them. You really do. Anyway, Police Scotland have come out, and this is obviously from Heart and Hand, official club partner. Police investigation has confirmed no criminality was established and no charges will be brought over the Souness TIFO. So, the police have looked into it, and the police say that there was nothing criminal about that TIFO. Therefore, it was not racist, it was not offensive, it did not breach the ridiculous Scottish hate crime laws that you have in force up there. Thank God we don't have them in England, although the way Keir Starmer's going, we're getting worse. So at the end of the day, we don't have any criminal charges. Therefore, the police are saying basically that there was nothing wrong with that TIFO. There was nothing wrong, okay? No one should be arrested. No one should be banned from football grounds. No action should be taken because it's not a criminal offence, okay? Yet our football club, headed up by our board, our present board, not the new owners, because the new owners don't own the club. It's coming from the present board. I know that's hard for some people to get their heads around. And our absolute tool, absolute just joke of a CEO to come out straight away after the game and condemn the TIFO for, in their words, crossing the line. What line did it cross? It was not criminal. It was not offensive. It was not anything. It was not a hate crime. Therefore, did it cross a line, or was it just basically freedom of speech, which we still, to some extent, have in this country? So basically, the police have come out and they have said that there was no criminality, there was nothing wrong with it. Therefore, Rangers board and Patrick Stewart, I challenge you. And I know, obviously, you're probably not going to watch this because you're probably below you. You should come out and apologise this morning. You should come out and apologise to the fans, apologise for your statement, and admit you got it wrong again, as you have done on virtually every single decision that you have made over the last 12 years. I mean, honestly, just again, wrong decision after wrong decision after wrong decision after stupid comment after stupid comment. What really irritates and annoys me is that Patrick Stewart cannot wait to get out, and he cannot wait to slaughter our fans or throw our fans under the bus for the slightest thing. Yet at Parkhead, Celtic FC fans threw objects at our players and at our fans during the game, okay, and after the game. At no point did we hear condemnation from Rangers about what happened. No point did we hear Patrick Stewart come out and condemn Celtic or condemn the Celtic fans for the throwing of objects. At no point did he do that. At no point. Yet, straight away after the non-racist, non-xenophobic banner that was unveiled at the Fenerbahce game, he was out there condemning the Rangers fans, calling them racist, demanding lifetime bans for them for the most heinous crimes ever. Yet Police Scotland again said there was no criminality, there was no racist element, and there was no hate in the banner whatsoever. Yet according to Patrick Stewart, obviously who knows better than the police, there was. He did not stand up for the fans against UEFA. He did not question UEFA and challenge UEFA, as many chief executives of top football clubs around the world do. Please note the top football clubs. Patrick Stewart is quite clearly not fit to be the CEO of a top football club. After that TIFO yesterday, he cannot wait. He is absolutely, creaming his pants to get out there and slaughter our fans yet again. How can a man that quite clearly has no respect, nothing for our fans, be allowed to be this chief executive officer of our football club? I genuinely do not understand how such an absolute waste of space cannot be allowed to make, to come out and time after time after time throw under the bus the very people who pay his wages, the very people who actually really are our football club, the fans. At the end of the day, Rangers Football Club would be nothing without our fans. And this man needs to remember that. And one thing that I've kind of picked up over the last few days from conversations that I've heard from Rangers fans contacting me on X and on Instagram and on TikTok and on YouTube and on email, is that they genuinely do not like this bloke. They genuinely cannot stand this man. I mean, I've even had comments that he's worse than Stuart Robertson. I mean, let's face it, you've got to go someone to be worse than Stuart Robertson. He quite clearly has proven on multiple occasions that he is not fit to do this job, that he is not the right man to be the chief executive of such a great football club. And the sooner he is sacked or that he does the honourable thing and comes out and resigns, the better for Rangers. Patrick Stewart, you are a disgrace. You should be nowhere near such a great footballing institution as Rangers. Do the honourable thing, resign. And if Parag Marath, if Andrew Kavanagh, you do the honourable thing when you come into power at the football club, sack that man. He is destroying and damaging the PR of our football club. And I know one thing that the Americans hate is something that will damage the public image of the football club. And he is certainly, Patrick Stewart, someone who is massively damaging the image of our football club. And he needs gone ASAP. Look, I've got to say that I was watching a video of Graham Souness and reflecting back on, when I started to support the club in 86, 87 and, 86, 87, I was 8 years old, 7, 8 years old. Going back then, and that's when I started supporting the club. And Graham Souness had a great philosophy, didn't he? On bin Rangers, and he talked about the hatred towards the club. He talked about the fact that Rangers weren't liked. He talked about the fact that Rangers were hated in Scotland, and he talked about the fact that there was a song at the time, and he echoed those lyrics. No one likes us, we don't care. And I think we're kind of getting back to that point, aren't we? We really are at that point now where everyone hates us. We don't care. We genuinely do not care. We couldn't give a monkeys that everyone hates us, because of the biasness of the media towards that lot across the city. There was another story that I just want to debunk on, I think it was the Daily Rebel, or it might have been the Scottish Sun, I can't remember, one of the two. And they were talking about, the statement was Parag Marath, drops Rangers transfer bombshell. And then obviously the subheading was Rangers will not spend, will not be backed in the transfer market this summer by Parag Marath and the 49ers Enterprises. Basically was the tenement of what the story was. And then you look actually into the story and you actually read the quotes that are put into it. And the quotes that Parag Marath says have absolutely nothing to do with Rangers Football Club and everything to do with Leeds United. It's quite hilarious that these comments that are attributed to Marath about Rangers have nothing to do with Rangers. They are everything to do with Leeds United and fitting in with the PSR regulations of the Premier League. He talks about the fact that they want to set up the trading model. They want to set up there will be outgoings as well as incomings. There will be players sold as well as bought. I mean, which is normal football practice anyway. But what you've got to remember is down south in the Premier League, the PSR regulations are very strictly applied. You've only got to look at the point deductions for Everton and Nottingham Forest, for example, over the last couple of seasons. And you look at those and you see that the rules are, and it's something like you can only spend 82% of your total revenue on players and player wages. So, Leeds United have only just been promoted to the Premier League, and this is part of one of the issues between, why teams that come up from the EFL Championship tend to go straight back down to the Championship from the Premier League, because you can only spend 82% of your revenue. A newly promoted club obviously gets the new TV deals, gets the TV money from Sky, but certainly doesn't have the money that other Premier League clubs have got. So because they haven't generated that Premier League revenue yet. Whereas even those clubs that have finished 4th, 5th off bottom, even those clubs that are finished down who have been absolutely awful and dreadful this season, Spurs and Man United, for example, have generated huge incomes because they've been in the Premier League for a substantial amount of time, which means they therefore have more money to spend and can spend more money. So what Parag Marath is actually saying is that because of the rules around PSR and the rules around the 82%, etc., is that Leeds United will obviously not be able to spend vast sums of money this summer. Yet straight away, the national newspaper in Scotland, the Daily Rebel, I think it was, straight away says it's Rangers will not spend, Rangers have no money, blah, blah, blah. That's not what he said. That is not what he said. He was talking about Leeds United, which last time I looked played in the English Premier League, not in the Scottish Premier League. And so they didn't play in Glasgow and certainly weren't called Glasgow Rangers. They were called Leeds United. Look, the truth about what will happen this summer, I think, it's very much somewhere in between. I think, there will be money put in initially into the club to allow Rangers to sign players. Now, anyone who thinks this is going to be a king's ransom, a massive amount of money, it ain't going to happen. And why is it not going to happen? Because you're not going to get a return on it. And also, we have to fit in with FFP. We have to fit in with financial fair play. Especially obviously going into Europe where you obviously assessed on that. We cannot be going to spend 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 million pounds on players. It ain't going to happen because we will fall foul of FFP and therefore fall foul of UEFA. And therefore we know that Patrick Stewart, who hasn't got a pair of balls to stand up to UEFA, will just lie back and let them do whatever they want to us. So, look, at the end of the day, we've got to be careful. Now, let's face it, from the very beginning of this takeover talk, from the very beginning of all the talk around the 49ers Enterprises, Andrew Kavanagh coming in and putting money into the club, it was only ever talked about as a maximum of about £25 million up front for player acquisition, supplemented by whatever money was generated by player sales. That was always the story. That has always been the case, and it still remains to this day the case. So, we've got to be very careful as Rangers fans that we don't get overly involved in listening to the media, to the Celtic bias media, to the anti-Rangers media, to the no one likes us, we don't care. That's the philosophy we've got to have, and I think we've got to kind of rely on what we're actually hearing from Parag Marath, from Andrew Kavanagh, from Greta Steins, and from these people when they talk to the media about Rangers and not about Leeds United. And I think the media in Scotland are very, very naughty and very silly to constantly use Leeds United as the example. Two vastly different clubs, two clubs that are vastly different in terms of their size, and two clubs that are vastly different in terms of the financial power they have because of the leagues they play in. So, let's get that into perspective, shall we? But, like I said, absolute pish story again in the Daily Rebel. Really not good at all. Real load of absolute rubbish. Right, guys, let me know what you think of the stories we've covered in today's video. Thank you for watching Glasgow Rangers Nation. As always, if you enjoyed the content, please like, comment, share, and subscribe on the way out. Guys, We are the people.